This is a video about how I almost got trapped in Egypt during COVID. I went to Europe the last week of January of 2020, and I stopped in New York City for a couple of days to split up the flight. I went to the World Trade Center and the Empire State Building. Before I left, people were asking me if I'm still going with the coronavirus spreading, but at the time it wasn't a huge concern, so I still went. At this point, China had under 10,000 cases, and USA and the Netherlands didn't have any. It was January 29th. Just over a quarter of the Netherlands is below sea level, and only half of the country is more than 1 meter above sea level. Amsterdam is nicknamed the Venice of the North, probably because you can get anywhere by boat. At the time, everything was open. Van Gogh Museum, Anne Frank House, the Heineken Experience, chocolate and cheese factories with tours. The city was building a garage by the port to hold another 5,000 bicycles for people going to work by boat when I was there. In Amsterdam, only 1 in 4 people own a car. Bicycles are the preferred transportation. But it was time to go to Rotterdam. Rotterdam had some cool architecture and some good pubs, some good food. But I liked Amsterdam more. And Brussels was similar to Rotterdam in a lot of ways. When I arrived in Brussels, they had 1 case. Bruges is where Dr. Evil was born and where the movie In Bruges was filmed. When I arrived to Bruges, there were 0 cases. Bruges was a lot like Amsterdam. You could walk anywhere in town or take a boat. You could see the Belfry of Bruges from almost anywhere in town. There was lots of sculpture art museums. Everything was still open, including chocolate factories, giving out self-serve, all-you-can-eat chocolate, displaying different chocolates from around the world with different ratios of cocoa powder, cocoa butter, sugar, and other ingredients. I had a flight booked after a couple of days to Prague in the Czech Republic, but I liked Bruges so much I decided to stay. But I was getting sick of the cold, so I booked a flight to Egypt with a layover in Vienna. Austria, of course, is where Arnold Schwarzenegger is from. When I arrived in Vienna, there were 0 cases in Austria, so people were still out in public, and nobody was worried about the coronavirus. I wasn't worried neither, till I got to the airport. Italy now had over 650 cases, and the USA had 60. And I was concerned because I was flying to Naples, Italy for a day on my way to Egypt. But I was only there for 1 day, and I just tried to avoid people. It was February 29th when I arrived in Egypt, exactly a month after I had started traveling. When I was flying over Egypt, I saw a different planet. Sand dunes and barren mountains as far as you could see, but a beautiful ocean. They had 1 case. Upon arrival to Egypt, they were doing temperature checks. But it seemed like nobody in Egypt knew about COVID yet.
So this here is what they call Hurghada.
My plan was to take a big tour around Egypt to Abu Simbel in the south and the pyramids in the north. But I decided to take some time to enjoy the Red Sea and the food and do some snorkeling. The water was clear but very cold. And finally, the day that I started my journey to Abu Simbel, everybody started calling and texting me that Donald Trump was closing the country in 2 days, but it was too late to book a flight. I stopped in a small town called Marsa Alam for a couple of days, about halfway to Luxor and Aswan. But my last day there, when I went to the bus station, it was closed because of COVID. There was a cruise ship heading from Aswan to Luxor that had a bunch of cases. It was March 9th, and I realized my time in Egypt was over, so I booked a flight. When I was in Bruges, I skipped my flight to Prague, so Prague is where I went. It was March 12th when I left Egypt, and they had 80 cases. When I got to Prague, I thought I had escaped COVID, but they had 117 cases. I had a couple of days to enjoy some Czech food and beer and walk around the city. People were still in public. Nobody was wearing a mask. But my third day, every restaurant, bar, pub, and store besides the grocery stores were forced to close. The trip was over, and I booked a flight back to USA. It was March 16th, and when I told everybody I was coming home, they said I wouldn't be allowed in the country, or I would be put in a quarantine, and that the airports would be overrun. But the airports were empty. There was literally nobody there, and they did a temperature check when I got to the United States and asked what countries I had been to in the last 2 weeks. I had only been to Egypt and the Czech Republic in the last 2 weeks, but 3 weeks prior, I had been to Italy. When I landed in the United States, Italy had the worst outbreak in the world. It was March 16th I got home. On March 19th, Egypt suspended all flights, 1 week exactly after I left Egypt. And soon after that, Europe and USA both announced travel bans. September 1st, Luxor and Aswan opened again for tourists, but today, Egypt now has over 100,000 cases.